Hello and welcome to the Bubbling Up Podcast, a show about the people and places of Hot Springs, South Dakota, and the Southern Black Hills. I'm your host, Justin Gosman, and this show is coordinated through the Hot Springs Area Chamber of Commerce. Bubble Up. The Cambridge Dictionary defines bubble up as to rise to the surface or to become obvious. And that's why this show came about. I want the stories behind our fascinating small South Dakota town to rise to the surface and be heard. Hot Springs, South Dakota, population 3,460 today, is a community in the southwestern corner of South Dakota, about 50 miles south of Mount Rushmore. Founded in 1890, we got our name from, you guessed it, naturally warm mineral springs that bubble up from underground. The stories seem endless, and it's my hope that this show will enlighten not only the fellow residents of and potential visitors to Hot Springs as to the intriguing history of our community, but also to its ongoing inner workings today, the stories behind our local businesses and nonprofit organizations and events, the voices that make a community what it is, and that are working to make it what it can be. I hope you'll join me on this journey. So, Kris, thank you for being on the Bubbling Up podcast, is what we're calling it, because not only because of some of our attractions like the springs, like you have at Evans Plunge Mineral Springs, but because Bubbling Up is kind of what we want to do, bring stories to the surface from Hot Springs. Yeah, so thank you for sitting down. And so you are the facility director. What's your official title? Is it facility director at Evans Plunge?
It is facility director, yes.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about what you do day to day at Evans Plunge Mineral Springs.
Wow, that's a loaded question. I am in charge of all the employees that we have in the building. So that would be our maintenance technician, all of our janitorial staff, all of our lifeguard staff, our aquatics director when we had one, all of our front desk staff. So maintaining management of all of them. I'm in charge of working with the city for the budget. I do all of the ordering. I do all of the timekeeping. I do many collaborations with Tom Nas, our maintenance guy. I change the toilet paper rolls. We do everything. We do everything. And anything involved in operations of Evans Plunge. That's
Wonderful.
me.
Wonderful. Wear a lot of hats, essentially.
Yes, I do.
You have a hat rack.
I do. Multicolor, multi-day.
There you go. Exactly. So tell us a little bit about how you got to Hot Springs, because you're not originally from here.
Correct.
So what led you to end up in Hot Springs?
Sure. I am a South Dakota girl, born and raised in Webster, so I am one of those East River girls. Don't hold it against me. And my husband and I had lived in South Dakota for the early part of our marriage, and then his position took us to Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So we basically raised our kids the majority of their school year ages in Madison. And then my husband was finished with his service to federal courts, and we came back to Hot Springs actually to help take care of his mother. So that brought us back to Hot Springs. My husband grew up in Custer. He's had a lot of extended family in Hot Springs, so for him it was like coming home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
It was quite a transition from Madison, Wisconsin to
I
Hot
can
Springs,
imagine.
South Dakota.
I imagine the weather is very different too, especially in the
Yes.
winter. We have a little bit more mild.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We're grateful to be in the Southern Hills every time fall and winter come around.
Yeah. But you don't have to worry about that inside Evans Plunge because it's open year-round.
True, yes.
And the water is warm.
The water is warm. It is a balmy 87 degrees all the time.
Yes, indeed. And it has been for over 125 years.
Correct.
What's the anniversary now?
We are 128 years. 1890.
Yeah, because I knew 2015 was the 125th.
Yes.
And we had a big celebration back then.
It was so fun.
That was great.
That was kind of my first foray into Evans Plunge and Hot Springs proper.
Yeah.
It was very exciting.
Yeah. So getting into Evans Plunge Mineral Springs, because the city purchased it in 2013.
Correct.
And then I know we had the grand opening in 2014. 2014, but you came in a little later after Evans Plunge had already been under city leadership for about a year and a half or so.
Yes.
What have been kind of the challenges in growing Evans Plunge from, because when you have it's the oldest commercial attraction in the Black Hills. I mean, just the name recognition alone of Evans Plunge Mineral Springs, everyone has memories. Anybody who's been to hot springs has memories attached to Evans Plunge Mineral Springs, and it's just been interesting to see it change under the city leadership in a very positive way, but also a very forward-thinking way. What has been kind of the things that you have spearheaded, and how have you been working, and not just you, but all the people you work with in the city, and what have been some of the challenges you've overcome and projects you've implemented to kind of bring hot springs into 2018?
There's been many, Justin. As you know, there's been many. Initially, when I came on board, we were still fighting the anger of some people in the community about the purchase of the plunge by the city. So it's been a lot about, first of all, of course, always safety, but second of all, for me, customer service and getting people up to speed about what the plunge is about, what we offer, why it's so important, what a gem it is for the city, how wonderful that we're gifted by this. So really changing our image and helping develop appreciation, and basically telling people too, okay, if you weren't on board, that's all right, but we're now part of the city, so get on board with us and let's move forward. Let's get some things done. Probably the biggest thing, of course, was a very aging building, very aging mechanicals. That has been a nonstop issue until really this past year. We had something failing all the time, and our belief system was we were not going to stick Band-Aids on things anymore. We were going to repair them correctly. We were going to take the time. We were going to do the research and do it right. And luckily, I've had a wonderful staff that's been of that same mindset. So mechanicals, old, icky walls,
Well, yeah, I mean, even the fundamental stuff, the ceilings and the floors and the walls, and there was a big overhaul that got done. And you close, that's one of the things that even though you're open year-round, there is an annual closure in midwinter, essentially. It's February, right?
Generally, yes.
Where essentially you go in and you make the biggest upgrades that are going to be the most substantial, the most costly, they're going to take the most effort, and you do it within that window of however long you're going to be closed. What have been some of the biggest ones that you've tackled, and, to address, some of those concerns from back in the day? Now, obviously, you have implemented them, but
some of the big things were, of course, for safety reasons, we needed to do some work with flooring. So we've done concrete overlay around the entire deck that is around the pool. We've also done those things in the health club, which is our hot tub, steam room, sauna area, the locker rooms. That was big. We added a handicapped accessibility ramp, so people who can take walkers or even people who are visually impaired can walk in. Wheelchairs can go in that, at least to get down to the water. We've done many upgrades on slides. We've taken out yards and yards of carpet that didn't ever belong in a water system. Our HVAC is a beast. It's a wonder, and we have had many things with that. Controlling the humidity and the water pressure, and being on mineral water and needing to switch to city water, and all of those intricacies are just amazing. I mean, what an education that's been for me.
Oh, I bet.
But those have been huge things. Moving past some of the old inherited inventory.
Yes.
And you've been a part of that. Making some good choices, rebranding ourselves. And, the thing that's important for us is to be a place for everyone. So everyone can come and enjoy the waters. And you talk to anybody who's been coming to the plunge, and there's many that have been coming for 60 years, they will swear to those healing properties. Keeping the water clean, keeping everything, bringing it into the here and now so people can enjoy it more.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that with kind of the rebranding, you've latched onto, because for years and years it was just Evans Plunge.
Right.
And that got its name by its founder,
Yes.
Fred Evans, and has maintained that name for over 125 years. And now we've made it so that it's Evans Plunge Mineral Springs. It clarifies for people who maybe haven't been to Evans Plunge that it is mineral springs. People often, I think, come expecting something different than what they get.
Yes.
Because the name Hot Springs inherently brings to mind this image of, outdoor, warm, or like actual hot springs. Like it will, maybe hurt you,
Yeah.
And that's not at all what we have at Evans Plunge Mineral Springs here in Hot Springs. It's much more... it's warm, like you said. It's 87. It's non-sulfuric,
Right.
which makes a huge difference in pleasurability of
Yes.
visiting there. So I guess as far as Evans Plunge's rebranding has gone, what are some of the things that you've done in changing the messaging to suit kind of a modern audience?
That's a great question. The old standard, it's all about the water.
Yeah.
And it is all about the water, and that's really what we focus on. It's not about our slides. It's not about our rings. Though those are great things and they provide a lot of entertainment for a lot of folks, it is about the benefits of the mineral water and the fact that there's something for everyone to enjoy there.
Yeah.
One of the really fun things that I like to do, and I love it when kids come in, we can have a little mini science lesson as they're checking in. So if you get down on the floor at their level and you start talking to them and say, do you know that there's rocks in the bottom of this pool?
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a pool that has rocks on the bottom?
Yeah.
And then we talk about the 13 springs. They want to know where the springs are, so you can tell them they're more in the north end of the pool, and that when you walk in the morning and nobody's in the pool, you can see them bubbling up. We talk about the water coming in at 5,000 gallons a minute,
Which is
at
just
87
ridiculous.
degrees. It is ridiculous. And that we don't have to use that chlorine so their skin doesn't get itchy, their hair doesn't get crunchy, because every hour and a half that turns itself over. That pool is like a new pool.
Yeah.
And to watch them, oh my gosh, it's so fun. And
Yeah.
the fact that you can say to a little 3-year-old, do you know you can slide down the tongue of a turtle? Or, the tongue of a frog.
Yeah.
It's pink, and you can do that. Oh, really?
Yeah.
You watch me. So you can get kind of the science little,
Yeah.
storytelling piece to the kids. And what you do is you look across and you see their parents and their grandparents are sucking this up and soaking it in too, because they didn't really know all that information.
Yeah.
So that is really fun. And that's part of the rebrand, I think, the water and the pool. And this is the original pool. We're on our third building, but this is the original pool. And how
Yeah.
amazing is that?
Yeah, it is. And that's the other thing, with you talking about the families and really sharing the experience of visiting Evans Plunge Mineral Springs. It has, because when I grew up in Hot Springs in the 90s and the early 2000s, growing up here under private ownership, it had become, to be very kind, it had become a little stale.
Yes.
In terms of, well, we're here and people know we're here and that's all we need to do. And we don't need to make it an experience. People will just come for the water. Well, that may have worked, 120 years ago. It may have worked 80 years ago. It may have worked 50, 60 years ago. But today people are looking for an experience.
Yes.
They're not just looking for an attraction that has a thing. They're looking for what memorable event or experience am I going to have that I can take away and share with my family, because that's the biggest thing with Evans Plunge, I think, is word of mouth.
Yes.
People like we talked about, people have their own stories about, even
Right.
me just going off on my tangent about, what Evans Plunge was when I was growing up, but I enjoyed every time I went there.
Right.
But it was always a matter of, can it be more relevant or can it be improved? And so with customer service and with, kind of creating not necessarily a narrative per se, but certainly an experience.
Yes.
That's very cool.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's about the stories, especially the family stories, because you may remember when we had the 125th, this gentleman came in and he was 90 years old, and he said, I was here when I was a kid. I brought my son, I brought my grandson, and now my great-grandson is bringing me. Oh my gosh.
Multi-generational.
Yes. Which is so fun to be a part of that story.
Yeah.
I had another gal call the other day, and she said, my father is getting up there in years, and his siblings are as well. We used to come to Evans Plunge, or they used to come to Evans Plunge when they were young. And this year, I want all of the descendants to buy T-shirts from Evans Plunge, have a picture taken, send it to all these siblings, and then try and bring them all back for one last time next summer.
That would be so cool.
How fun to be part of that magic,
Oh, that's so cool.
The stories are amazing all the way across the board,
That is
whatever
awesome.
area you want to look
Do you
at.
have a story with Evans Plunge?
I don't, because I was that East River girl. But my husband's family, the Hansons, my husband grew up in Custer, but it was the biggest deal for them to come to Hot Springs and see Grandma and Grandpa and come to the plunge.
Yeah.
And of course, he tells the stories about not a single lifeguard, and they could get by with everything. And I'm going, don't tell me. It's all about safety for me now. But, every family that somehow tied in has those magical stories. And they, talk about the single ring and running up the wall, and you could almost run all the way around. And I just go, holy moly, I'm glad
That
wasn't
wouldn't
here.
fly today.
It would not fly. They say, when did you put the cover on that slide? Well, that's a long time ago.
That is too funny.
But it's so fun to see these families
Yeah.
developing stories. And
Very nice.
we're lucky also to be home to the Fall River swim team.
Yeah.
And I watched this very, very young team come in, and the memories that they're building, and that's an entirely different kind of memory, but it's so fun. And for them to say, I train at Evans Plunge Mineral Springs.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. Well, and you have otch groups as well. Which are the other groups that come in? And because it's almost like every day you have a different group.
We have a lot of groups. We have a ton of schools that come, throughout the state. And actually, we have a few schools from Wisconsin and Colorado that come every year as well.
Oh, wow.
They do these field trips. They come up to see Crazy Horse, to see Mount Rushmore, to do the whole thing. And we're always a part of that. We've hosted post-prom parties. We've hosted birthday parties all the time. A lot of end-of-the-season trips. We have Boy Scout groups that come in, Girl Scout groups that come in, family reunions that come in. So we try and accommodate as many groups as we can, and those are really fun. Those are really fun things. We tried the puppy plunge.
We did
this past year. What an adventure that has been.
So explain for folks that maybe didn't attend or haven't looked at the photos what the puppy plunge is.
The puppy plunge is awesome. So our very first venture into the puppy plunge was the night before we closed for our 2-week closure last winter. And we drained the pool indoors, and so we knew that it was a case the dogs could get in the water, the humans could get in the water, and just enjoy it. So we made it as a fundraiser for Battle Mountain Humane Society, so they could, for a price, they could come in and swim with their dogs or let their dogs swim. It was absolutely crazy. If you can imagine all those animals running around the inside of Evans Plunge, trying to kind of figure out how to get into the water because it's such a steep drop for our sides, but it was wonderful.
Well, and it helped that there were like areas with steps and, like you said, the wheelchair ramp.
Correct.
That they could also go down. It was a little less scary than just diving in. Although
Yes.
there were some dogs that did dive in.
Oh yes, they looked pretty good. Their form was quite excellent, actually. And that was such a hit that we did 2 more in the outdoor pool this summer. And in my personal opinion, those are much more effective and they're much more fun because it's not such a big drop. We can run them in and out of the fence, but it is so fun. Great thing for Evans Plunge to be a part of. Great for animals. Great for Battle Mountain.
Yeah.
It was just fun.
It's great to be part of the community in that way.
It is.
What are some of the other events that you have done over the years, and that you have planned for this coming year, as far as community events?
Great. This coming Saturday, we're so excited. We're having live music at Evans Plunge. We are having the Fall River Flutes play for an hour and a half from 1 to 2:30. It is also our big day to help support our local food pantry. So with a non-perishable item for the food pantry, admission is free all day Saturday. Anybody, doesn't have to be just local people, anybody that comes in. We're going to have some cookies. We're going to have some sales in our gift shop. So it's just going to be a very fun event. The historical information that we have says that there used to be live music quite often at Evans Plunge.
Really?
It would actually play down by the pool. So we have that kind of in our gears going forward, that maybe we're going to have some of that, or maybe we'll have an indoor beach day or a Polynesian something.
That would be cool.
It would be really fun, especially in the dead of winter. So that's going to be going on. We have also implemented $3 Fridays. And this is a wonderful thing. Children ages 3 through 17 can come and swim at the plunge for $3, and that does include tax, every Friday from 6 in the morning till 8 at night. You know, it's amazing to me that in this community that has this beautiful facility, we don't see a lot of hot springs children.
Really?
So my goal would really be to get a lot of the locals in and make it a fun day. You know, come in and swim for a while, take a little time out, maybe watch a movie up on the new TV we have on the second floor in kind of a little lounge area, hang out, meet your friends, you know, make it a gathering place, a community place.
Yeah.
But that's every Friday now. So $3 Friday is awesome. We have implemented King of the Rings and the Cannonball
That's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorites, the Cannonball contest.
It is so fun. It is so fun.
One of the things that and speaking of the rings, because those are a mainstay of Evans Plunge, the rings that spread across the width of the pool. I saw that wonderful Halloween picture where one of who was it at the plunge?
That was our head guard, Joshua Masada.
He dressed up as a T-Rex.
Yes.
In that wonderful, that you see in all those memes, like the floppy T-Rex, the inflatable one, and was going across the rings, and it's hilarious.
I love it. I don't know how he did it. He said, you know, everything would flop.
Yeah.
Like you said, everything would flop. And he said, the headdress.
Yeah.
I had to keep moving my eyes to see where that next ring was. But it was awesome. It was awesome. Yes, and check us out on Facebook because it is posted on there.
It's great.
So fun. It's so fun. You know, we had that for Halloween. We had our front desk staff dress up as a witch. You know, we like to do things like that. We're decorating for Christmas. We have specials all through the year, you know, for various things. At St. Patty's Day, if you dressed up as a leprechaun, you got in free, you know.
Oh, nice.
And we had people that actually did that.
That is so cool.
You know, so we try and do 2 or 3 things every month to really promote that we're having some fun here. We got some things going on. I think there's so many of those things that we can do.
Yeah.
You know, just try them.
Yeah.
We don't know until we try whether they're going to work or not.
And that's doing this podcast and talking even with, like, on the first episode with Karen, with the Hot Springs Theater and with Christmas in the Hills, and in future episodes, there's a buzz in Hot Springs as of late where people are wanting to try new things. And we're not afraid to latch on to something that is a little experimental, a little risky. And I like that Evans Plunge Mineral Springs is going down that route as well, because I think it's been successful and will continue to be, because we're, as a community, offering something that you can't get in the rest of the Black Hills.
Right.
And so it's definitely appreciated, everything that you and your team does down there at Evans Plunge Mineral Springs to make people's experiences going there memorable, that, you know, hopefully they'll hold on to for generations, like the generations before them have.
I hope so. It's great fun. It's great fun. And I think, you know, what you're saying is there is this excitement in Hot Springs. There's this fever that's going on, and people are excited again, and there are new things, and the willingness. And if they don't work, fine. We'll just try the next thing.
Yep.
But it's really fun to be a part of that, and it's fun to be a part of a community who really is wanting to move forward and continuing to make this a destination place, not just a pass-through.
Yes, absolutely.
It's fun.
So, wonderful. Well, thank you for coming on today. It's been
thank
fun
you for having
talking.
me.
I know, we sat down and it was like, just blitzed by. It's great.
Oh, we have more time? I appreciate you inviting me. This is great fun, and I think it's a wonderful project that you're doing. So
Thank
happy
you.
to be a part of it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kris.
You bet.